Reports suggest there'll be another salacious political story from the ABC tonight as we enter the bedrooms of our politicians. We've seen the appalling setup in New South Wales via this ICAC. You've heard me say many times these matters, if there are suggestions of corruption, should be heard in camera, that is, out of the public view. If evidence then suggests that a case of corruption can be made, that evidence should go to the DPP. He can then decide, if he so decides, and then names and details would be made public. We don't have that system in New South Wales, and people are convicted by headlines. Well, the federal government, to its credit, Christian Porter, has released draft legislation for a Commonwealth Integrity Commission. It would investigate referrals of corruption, conduct private hearings, and submit its findings to the DPP. This, in my view, is the quite proper approach. The DPP would then recommend whether police should lay criminal charges. Let's go to Chris Merritt, who's the Vice President of the Rule of Law Institute of Australia. He and I have been around this ICAC track for a long time. Chris, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Is this, as some people are saying, a toothless tiger?
People who say that have got their talking points ahead of the legislation. They haven't had a look at it. This is an outfit, if it goes ahead, that can arrest people. It can raid their houses. It can seize documents. With a warrant, it can seize their passports. It can do a vast amount of things that ICAC in New South Wales can't do. It's just beggars belief that people would say that it's...
But the difference here is that the judiciary, not the Integrity Commission, the judiciary will tell us who is guilty of corruption. And that'll only happen, as you say, in a court governed by the rules of evidence, the presumption of innocence and the safeguard of appeals.
It's a very orthodox approach, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are things that have got me a little worried about it, and it just puts the lie to these people who say this is a toothless tiger. This organisation will investigate criminal offences, but it will do so with the power to abrogate the right to silence. It will force people to... that people won't have the privilege against self-incrimination. Now, those are pretty fundamental protections in criminal law in this country, but when people go before this organisation, those privileges and rights won't exist. Now, that's got me a little bit worried. Because it might have gone too far. Christian Porter might have overreacted here a little bit, and those who say it's a toothless tiger obviously haven't read what he's got in mind.
Just explain to our viewers, how does it get to the Integrity Commission? Who refers it? And just supposing you felt there was an issue of corruption, how do you go about that?
There's two divisions. The Law Enforcement Division, it's easier to make a referral there. Members of the public can make a referral. And you've got to keep in mind that the Law Enforcement Division has got the big four departments, or big four agencies. It's got APRA, ASIC, the ACCC and the Tax Office. And the public can lodge complaints against those organisations directly with the CIC. So for people to say, oh, this is terrible because the public can't lodge complaints, it's wrong. It's just plain wrong. So the other division, the public sector division, which is the common or garden parts of the public service, referrals from them must come from the head of the agency concerned or the head of the department concerned. And you don't have to prove anything. There's got to be a reasonable suspicion of corruption.
Right.
As defined by law in the public sector.
Barnaby Joyce has said that we already know what problems there are at a federal level because there are mechanisms to discover them: Senate inquiries, referrals from the federal police, the Parliament itself, royal commissions. He says, for example, the reason you hear about Cartier watches is because we have systems in place. So what do you make of that comment?
Look, that's true. That's very true. This is how I read it. Before this, a year ago, I actually pointed out there were scores of integrity agencies keeping the Commonwealth public sector and its agencies in line. They cost millions and millions of dollars. And now what the government's proposing to do is to spend another $142 million and employ 170 new public servants and 3 commissioners sitting on top basically as another check. Now, you've got to look at why they're doing this. There's a political groundswell. It's coming from the left side of politics.
I know.
The government's recognised
is there that much corruption that we need all that bureaucracy? For God's sake, you just frightened the hell out of me there, Chris.
Well, there is an argument with these standing royal commissions. That the problem with the standing royal commission is that they'll find work for themselves.
Yeah, that's
they'll keep looking.
That's true. That's true. Well, listen, as this thing develops, because it is a draft piece of legislation, we'll talk again. I think it is a very important instrument to answer many of the concerns that the public feel about what goes on in the bowels of government. So thanks for your time, Chris. There is...
Not a problem.
There is Chris Merritt.